Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice.
Hi, it's Robin. Welcome back. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about stages of change and how you know when you're ready to begin. One of the things we were kind of talking about, is what is that moment? What does that moment mean, right? And a lot of times, in counseling, we'll call that the crucible moment. And what that means is all the ingredients are together in the crucible, and they can catch fire and become something new and wonderful, right? So that idea, I always love the imagery of...
I have goosebumps right now.
Aww. Right? I love the imagery of the phoenix, right? Because the phoenix rises from the ashes and becomes something beautiful and new and wonderful. And so I love that idea of how do we each, seize that moment where we can choose to make a change, where we can feel that power within us, that decision to say, I cannot do what I have been doing. I've got to be willing to move forward and do something different. And what is that going to be, right? So I guess, Meagan, I would say, what was your moment? What was that aha moment where you knew, okay, I can't keep doing this?
I think I have to go back a little bit because I think talking about, I don't want to say like the decline of my health, I guess I was in a serious health moment. Mm-hmm. But I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes with my first pregnancy. Yeah. And that was horrible. And I thought it was life-ending. It was not. But I did not want to become insulin dependent for that pregnancy. So I got religious about my diet. I don't know if you guys remember. Like I was that was BLEing before BLE was a thing for me because I was religious about my diet, making sure that my blood sugars was normal and I did not have to go on insulin. And then in between my first pregnancy and my second pregnancy, I became type 2 diabetic. And I think I had been pre-diabetic leading up to the first pregnancy, but had to go on medication in between the two. And then with my second pregnancy I was already, type 2 diabetic, but again, I became insulin dependent during that pregnancy in order to be able, even with the strict diet control, which I tried at the very beginning, I was like, no, I know this is going to be a problem. It was a problem with the last one. So I'm going to just do what I need to do. And then having to go on insulin and, thankfully healthy, both my boys are healthy and, don't have any issues today, but, I continue to be type 2 diabetic. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I'm just taking metformin. I'm not on insulin, you know what I mean? Right. And that was kind of always my justification. Even though my weight was an issue, I knew it was an issue. My blood pressure was creeping up, and my cholesterol was getting bad. I was like, but it'll be fine. I've always been overweight and healthy. I'm putting air quotes around healthy. I've always been overweight and healthy. And so I thought that I could just continue the way I was. I didn't think that I needed to change that because of health. I thought it was more of a vanity thing of I want to lose weight to be thin and be look and have a body that I think I should have, or that I think society thinks I should have, but not because I think that there's a health implication of me being overweight, which was part of my mentality around body positivity. Mm-hmm. So then in November, I went and got these labs. I kind of had avoided the doctor for a little while, and my weight had continued to creep up, and I just was like, I just, whatever, I'll just continue taking my medicine, and I won't, I'll just kind of ignore it. So I went and finally got labs because my doctor's like, okay, it's been a year, we need to get labs on you. So I went and got labs, and it was just, everything was way out of control, way out of control. So my A1C had crept up to 9.6. My triglycerides
should be under 6.0.
Yeah, so normal is under 6.6. So 9.6, and this was on medication. My triglycerides were almost 700. They were 694.
And they should be less than 150.
Yeah, so that was really bad. Yeah. That was the number that really scared me. And my total cholesterol was almost 300. It was like 297 or something like that, which again is not normal.
Should be under 200.
Should be under 200. So there you go. The doctor's telling us. The doctor's telling us what normal is. So they were bad. And so my doctor, I got my labs done before I went to see my doctor. And in the interim between getting my labs done and seeing my doctor was like a Thursday to a Monday or something. I had made the decision I was going to do BLE.
Oh, wow.
So I walked into that doctor's appointment and I'm like, look, I understand this is bad. Like, I get this is bad, and I'm doing this. Like, I'm starting this, I'm making this life change because I realized how bad it had gotten. And so that was really, the catalyst for me was seeing those numbers on paper, black and white, knowing that I could not continue. And the triglycerides really are what got me. And I think it was because you and pointing to Bonnie and Clay had said something about his triglycerides before he started BLE and how rapidly they had come down. And so that was kind of what was set in my mind. I'm like, okay, this has got to be the solution. Like, it's got to be the solution because it worked for Clay. So that was definitely it was a scared straight moment for sure. And yes, I think all the pieces were in place. We were I guess it was kind of coming out of the pandemic at that point, right? Like we were, things here, just to dive a little deeper, things here in the Pacific Northwest, we had been closed up, and really quarantined off a lot more than I think a lot of the rest of the country had. And I have family in the Midwest, and we had talked about, like, I don't think that they really understood how isolating it had been because we were all really quarantined, and there were still a lot of places that were closed or masks were required. I'm still wearing a mask to doctor's appointments till 2 months ago, and it's we're July 2023 right now, and I was still wearing a mask to doctor's appointments. So it was a different atmosphere here, and I think my mental health had taken a decline during COVID, and just having some depression, and I sought counseling, and I think at that point I was just really ready. Like you said, it was the moment where everything aligned. Like I finally knew what the plan was. I knew what the program was because Bonnie, because Bonnie and Clay had already kind of introduced me to that, and everything else kind of fell into place as far as like the scary of where I was at. So yeah, that was definitely the moment for me.
That was your moment.
That was it.
What about you, Bonnie?
Well, my moment should have been when my husband Clay almost had a heart attack and had to have a stent put in because he had really high triglycerides. But, he just got on medication, and he even said, I think we really need to change our diet. And we were having a lot of other life stressors at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'm not really ready to do that right now.
No thanks.
And also, honestly, I had never seen a way forward before either. I had never seen a way that resulted in permanent loss. So it was more like we should suffer again. That's what that felt like. We should just suffer again for nothing.
We're going to be resigned.
Yeah, that's what going on a healthy diet meant. We just need to go back to suffering, without a real long-term solution. So I think, for me, again, not a health crisis, but more just hitting my endpoint with the food thoughts. Anytime I go to any social event where there's food out, the first thing I am thinking about is what food is sitting out and what would I like to eat, and are people watching me, and did they notice that I already got one, and I got one cookie, and then I got 2 cookies. Should I get 3 cookies? I want a 3rd cookie. Has anyone noticed that I've had 2 cookies? Have I eaten more cookies? No one else is having any of the cookies. They're all going to see that I'm eating. This is my constant food chatter in my head. Every single place I would go in public, at every restaurant, I would eat quickly. Again, because of that fear of lack, I would eat quickly. I'd finish before everybody else. I'd be sick to my stomach full and already be thinking about what else I could eat, or I wonder if they're going to finish that on their plate. And then, working from home, where I used to work in an office where I was on my feet and walking around, working from home and just literally getting up every hour and getting a little bowl full of chocolate chips and marshmallows, which started out as a bowl of nuts. Then it transitioned to a bowl of nuts with some chocolate chips in it. Then a marshmallow got added.
How'd that get in there?
That one singular marshmallow.
Then it was a little bowl of just chocolate chips and marshmallows that I would eat every hour. And it's funny, but it's really horrible. I was gaining weight. I was slowly moving up a size and had to buy new clothes. And, it just kept going. And I literally saw no way out until till I read the book and I realized like, oh, this is food addiction. This isn't because I don't know what to eat, right? It's the food addiction part is why I can't stop doing this, even though I am very intelligent and I know this is really bad for me. But the denial, again, not getting on the scale, just, I told you, I kind of resign myself, I'm just going to be overweight because I'm older and who cares anymore.
Right.
I mean, just that whole thing, like the giving up, So for me, it was just getting that information and realizing there was an actual way that I really could fix this problem that wasn't just I'm going to suffer by eating diet food until I get to a certain weight and then I'm going to regain again. It was like, I could actually see that this might really work like forever. And I had never, ever seen that before.
That hope that there was a way off of the crazy merry-go-round.
Yeah, because I had never been able to keep weight off because none of those things worked. And again, as a physician practicing for 20 years, I have never seen a patient lose all their weight and keep it off ever, whether they had surgery, took medication, followed a diet plan. Never have I seen a patient succeed. And I had a couple patients that did really well I'd put them on a 50-gram carb diet. That was a big thing I pushed when I was in practice, and they still gained it back because they couldn't stick with it. Why? Because they're addicted. Yeah. And just controlling the food didn't fix that. Right?
And that piece about, I keep coming back to what you said, finding the way out, right? Finding the thing that made logic sense and that was actually maintainable.
Right. So then once you have your crucible moment, once you decide you think you're ready, maybe Robin, you can talk about, that stages of readiness to make change, right? There's a progression.
Yeah. Because I think the thing that, talking about our own moment is great. I mean, because we each had our own moment for what it was. But I think, there might be people that are listening that haven't gotten there yet, or maybe have tried. Because I think that's the other thing that I realized a lot because I'm part of the online community with BLE, is that there's a lot of people that have tried and not succeeded and come back and come back and come back. And so I think that there's probably a lot of discussion we could have about that, about like what would be the sign or the signposts, rather. Let's not say that there's one like highlighted sign in the the middle of the road. That would be nice, right? So it's like, this is your moment, flashing lights and bells. But if you don't have that, like, what are some signposts that people can look for that this might be the time to take, to look into this or try this or to make a change, whatever that change might be.
Well, and I think you said something really interesting, right? That there are some people that will start with BLE, but then maybe not be able to maintain it. And I have a lot of clients that will have said that to me about, whatever program it is they've done, or whether it's counseling. Oh, I tried it and it doesn't work, right? And my view is sometimes we are not ready for it to work. Right? That we can jump on something and try it, and it's not that program doesn't work. It's that we're not in a place where we're really ready to commit to that, right? Like we've all talked about that. Oh my God, giving up, sugar and flour and alcohol. I could never do that, right? And Bonnie, I remember when you told me about the program, I was like, oh crap, I could never do that. That's not happening.
And add to that, connecting to the community. So giving up all those things, and we call that, that's called coming all the way in and sitting all the way down. And until you're ready for that, you're not really ready.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't, excuse my language, you can't half-ass this program.
Yeah.
There's not really a way to do it that way.
Nope. Then you're just trying to do it to lose weight. You're not really trying to make a change.
Right. And so I think to me, that's the sorry, Robin, don't mean to interrupt, but like, that's the defining is that if you are ready to upend your life when it comes to the way you look at food, that's I think, to me, that's one of the signposts for sure.
That being ready to say, I'm going to let go of this old relationship that I've had with food, alcohol, right? Self-comforting, all of that, right? And so, if you Google stages of change, right? The first one is pre-contemplation. It's I'm starting to be aware that I need to make change. My pants don't fit. My labs aren't good. I get it. Someday I'm going to have to make a change, right? And then we can move into contemplation, which is I'm going to increase the pros about change. I'm going to start connecting with all the reasons why I would like to make change.
Okay, really quickly, we're going to introduce Sprinkles.
Oh,
You can probably hear Sprinkles coming across the floor right now. It's Bonnie and Clay's bulldog.
Bulldog.
She does not follow bright line eating, and therefore she gets very short of breath when she gets hot or exerts herself. So if you hear heavy breathing,
It's the dog.
It's
not one of us, we promise. Okay, I'm sorry, Robin. Continue.
Okay, so in contemplation, we're going to try and increase our pros for change and decrease the cons, right? Maybe I'm gonna start getting rid of some of the foods that are in the house. I'm going to stop going out to certain places that I eat. I'm going to maybe increase my support in the community, right? Preparation is the next stage. We're gonna commit and start making a plan. It's not necessarily making the change, but what is my plan? You know, maybe that means making a decision of, you know, okay, I'm gonna order that book next week. I'm gonna order maybe I'm gonna, you know, start thinking about what that, you know, well, maybe let me bookmark that website, right? And then we're starting to move into the action phases, which I'm gonna implement and then revise my plan. I'm gonna read the book. I'm gonna start making the eating changes. I'm gonna start changing my habits a little bit. I'm gonna start connecting with community, right? And then we go into maintenance. How do I integrate this change into my lifestyle? And the kicker is that we can relapse at any point in time. And the beauty of that is just like we can leave that circle of change, we can also re-enter that circle.
I have chills again.
Oh.
yeah.
But that to me is that power of embracing ourselves and deciding that we're going to commit to a growth plan, right?
Yeah.
A personal change, right? This is not just about I'm going to change my weight. It's about I am going to change who I am and how I view myself.
And it's a huge change to make. And I've also learned you cannot, like with anything else, you cannot lead someone to that.
Yep.
They have to come to it willingly.
Yeah.
But sharing your experiences can help others if they're in the pre-contemplative phase, like you were, Megan, like hearing that, like, you know, like you weren't ready to hear that you need to give up those things, but hearing that we were doing it, seeing that it worked for someone else, helped when you got to the point where you were pre-contemplative, you had that information.
Yep.
And I think that's with any kind of addiction,
Yeah.
you know, you cannot make someone go to rehab, says Amy Winehouse.
Right.
You know, if you're not ready, you're not going to participate in it. If you're not ready for therapy, you're not going to participate in it.
Right.
And again, if you just only I just want to lose 20 pounds before that wedding, you know, this kind of life change is not going to be, and there's no program that's going to be successful if you're not really ready. If you're not ready to come all the way in.
Yeah. And I think I also just want to make sure that people understand that there's hope. You know,
Yes.
because I think for me, I didn't feel like there was for a long time. You know, I just felt like there wasn't. I was gonna always be fat. Like I was always gonna be overweight, and there was nothing I was gonna be able to do about it.
Yeah.
And nothing ever worked, and it was just too much of an effort, no matter what. And this is hard for me because I feel like there's some embarrassment around this. The BLE has been easy. The weight has fallen off, and I know that I'm unusual, and that doesn't happen for everybody.
Yeah, I lost like a half a pound a week.
Yeah. You can do the math. I've been doing this for a little over 6 months, and I've lost 85 pounds.
Yeah,
So you
crazy.
can imagine how quickly. And there are times, and I've told Bonnie this before, that I'm like, I worry that there's something else wrong with me. But I know it really is because this is the way my body wanted to eat. So I think think to me, it's like there should be a message of hope in all of this, and that. Not that it's not hard, and not that I haven't made huge life changes and choices, but that it's not impossible, and you're not destined to live your life in an overweight body
Or just addicted to food.
And with the food chatter and just the noise in your head. I know that you've talked about that, just the noise in your head about food for the rest of your life.
Yeah. If I never lost a pound, but just had that go away, that it'd be worth it to me to be on it. That's how easy this plan is compared to how miserable I was with that all the time. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I can go to any restaurant, I can go anywhere where people are eating and drinking anything, and I just no longer have that feeling. And it's just,
Oh, wow.
it's it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
How much energy that chatter
Exactly.
must have taken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that disordered thinking got put there for a reason. We can talk about lots of things
Yeah.
with that as we go through this, but yeah, I think that's the thing and it is surprisingly easy to do this program.
Yeah.
Once you no longer have
Yes.
food chatter, you're not white knuckling it
Yeah.
through abstinence anymore. It's
Yeah.
not just like, you're just holding on to the next day. That all just goes away, and it's just actually, and as we talked about earlier, it's a ton of food, so it's like you have plenty of food, and
Yeah.
it's just healthy food, and food starts to taste better too.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Is there any other thoughts that you guys have about the crucible moment, or what people should be looking for if they're interested in making this change, or what people should watch out for if they're looking to make this change?
I think you don't need to be, if you're really ready, you don't need to be frightened of, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to eat sugar and flour again. I can't even imagine that. And it's like, just do it for a day.
A day.
Yeah.
And then do it for another day.
Yep.
And before you know it, you've strung together a couple of weeks.
That's right.
And as soon as you string together about 6 weeks, the food chatter goes away. It's kind of remarkable.
Well, not
And
for
so-
everybody, I will say. It took
Maybe
a little bit longer.
for others.
Yeah, it took a little bit longer for some.
So,
Yeah.
Clay's
but
telling
I
me
think,
10 weeks.
I think,
Yeah.
I think not being afraid to try it. No one is saying that you can never do it again. You're just saying, I don't think I'm going to do it today.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point, is that it doesn't have to be black and white. You
Yeah.
can say, let me try. What's the worst thing that's going to happen
Yeah.
if I try this, if I commit to doing this a day?
I'm going to feel a
week,
little hungry.
a
And
month.
no one ever died from
Right.
feeling a little
Yep.
hungry.
Nobody ever died from being
Well,
a
that's
little
what
bit hungry.
Susan says that all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody died
Sure.
between lunch and dinner. That's one of my favorite sayings. Is
Yeah.
No one ever died of starvation between lunch and dinner. So
But I think it's about not just the food changes, but changing that emotional relationship
Yeah.
with food, and being willing to let go of that unhealthy relationship,
Yeah.
right? That has, in a way, become a known comfort
Yep.
and a companion.
yeah,
It's always been there, and what do I do if that's not there?
You need to be prepared to fill the void with some
Yes.
other coping tools. And I think
Yes.
that's however you approach making this kind of change, it needs to come with the commitment that you recognize that you're using food as a comfort and as a tool to help you
Right.
get through the day or the week. And you got to start working on putting some other things in that time space, or else, your chance of relapse is pretty high.
Yeah, but it's I hate the term tools in your coping toolbox, but that kind of is what we're talking about, is
Yeah.
what are those new things that you are going to choose and reach for,
Yeah.
and how are you going to manage that, right, behaviorally, and how are you going to manage that cognitively?
Yeah.
And so we'll certainly in the future get into some of that stuff as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Any other thoughts? So we have brought you guys to the point of some background about us, some background about our food journeys, all of us, our weight journeys, and that sort of thing. The next episode is going to focus really on the program and what the program is and how we work our program. So if you're interested, obviously stay tuned because that's coming up next.